Howdy everybody, we're back with some more RPG horror stories. Let's jump right into it. Our first story today is going to be from Senpai Man and is titled Advice with Campaign, Session at a PvP Moment and Left Players Unhappy. Hey guys, our Pathfinder campaign has hit a bit of a conundrum, and I was wondering if some outside opinions might help with some solutions. This campaign is over 2 years old now, so there will be a bit of explaining. So, we are running a 5-player Pathfinder campaign. The overall narrative is that it is sort of a Witcher/Darkwood setting, a kind of survival horror-esque campaign where our characters have been mysteriously teleported to a land named Drustvar, a land recently cursed to be swallowed by the forest, where at night creepy Slavic-themed monsters come out and hunt people down. We are trapped in a village named Waycrest and have to work with the people of the village to fend off this threat. Large factors of going into this campaign was moral grayness, the weight of choices, and having to make shitty decisions. I like the idea of this campaign. I personally really enjoy the Witcher series. I like the dark fantasy-ness of it. I like the Slavic, Nordic, Germanic, like fairy tale, folklore, creatures and all that. And the idea of like a morally gray campaign could be a really neat idea at the right table. For the most part, the campaign has been fun and generally quite wacky, though there has been clashes now and then. The characters each player controls are Jaeger, a human fighter that lived in the forest. Primary goal is to keep Waycrest safe and also is secretly a werewolf. Jonathan, a human alchemist toxicologist who's my own character, a psychopath who essentially is very focused on a means to the end and loves to experiment on living things. Sison is a kobold cleric necromancer, has a powerful necrodrake for a father that she is frequently in contact with, sort of a bratty nepo baby whose primary goal is to please her father, who is evil. She also wishes for necromancer and undead to be equals with the living. King Rat, a Yosoki summoner. Yosoki are like a rat folk, I think, in Pathfinder. Lived in the sewers of a city before recent events, is a anxiety-driven, morally gray survivalist. Luca, a monster hunter, wishes to save his wife from a curse that turned her into a doll, easygoing, and a generally morally good character. It's quite a colorful collection of characters. I would definitely agree that there's a lot of variety here in both character composition, their goals, the moral compass, etc. Personally, I've never played Pathfinder, so these races and classes, they kind of sound interesting to me, especially the toxicologist and then the Yosoki. The summoner too, that sounds really cool. Long term, the campaign has been quite fun. There have been conundrums, particularly with Sison, where due to her father's situation and the player's general assertiveness, the story gets focused quite a bit on her at times. But this also means that her character comes at odds a lot with our characters, particularly Jaeger's. This is worth mentioning for later. Eventually we decide that Waycrest is no longer sustainable, so we go to a city in the land named Novosk, gambling that it is still alive. We can move everyone there. We split the villagers into a large group and our own party into another, trusting that we could distract the monsters in our journey to keep the villagers safe in theirs. We make it to Novosk, which is still safe and flourishing. This starts some of the first issues of the campaign. As obviously a flourishing city is quite a tonal shift of our initial survival horror theme, the other larger issue is that the GM has the governor reluctant to help us get the Waycrest villagers to safety unless we did errands for him, such as hunting down a vampire, which took multiple sessions. This caused frustration, particularly with the Jaeger player, as his obvious goal is to get Waycrest to safety, and we currently don't know how they're faring in the forest. Understandable that Jaeger as a character would be frustrated, but also I get the need for the story to require the party to run errands. Though I would argue hunting a vampire is a little bit more than an errand, but I understand why the GM was like, hey, you got to do something. If you want me, the governor of this city, to take these people in, by golly, you got to do a bunch of work for me. So I totally get it. The vampire hunt caused the first conflict. We finally found the vampire in the sewers, and the vampire knew Sison's father and asked for her help. Sison, seeing undead as equals and is naive herself, agreed and helped him escape. This caused frustration about the characters and the party, particularly the player for Jaeger. Jaeger's own goals have been delayed further, and he feels frustrated with Sison's character in general and doesn't really like her. Whilst I understand the frustration, I don't think he dealt with it in a very good way, half venting it as his character in front of Sison, which made the Sison player feel picked on and upset, as while she understands the Jaeger player's frustrations, this still feels like something Sison would do. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a conversation that players need to keep any complaints and any venting they want to do in character, so that it's less likely a player themselves will feel picked on. This is assuming your players can separate criticism of their character versus criticism of themselves, which it kind of sounds slightly like Sison can't here, so that's a little worrying. It also would not hurt to have a conversation again about the tone of the story, that things are going to be morally gray, forcing the characters to pick between a shitty choice and a shittier one. That being said as well, Sison opting to help a vampire doesn't mean that she as a character shouldn't suffer consequences of making that choice. But that needs to be kept in game and in character. It should not be anybody lashing out at Sison's player. Sison, the character, should be the one getting the lashing out at. Several sessions later, we have reached the main issue. We had to cross into a desolated part of the city that had been closed off, now haunted with monsters. A powerful druid was sent there by the governor, and she has the power to help us with Waycrest, so we went there to help. In an unlucky encounter, King Rat is killed on our journey from an unfortunate triple crit. The party presses on, and King Rat and the GM plan to revive him, which he eventually is after we find the druid. But it's under a shady deal with a mysterious entity, according to the druid, and King Rat himself withholds from sharing that information. Eventually, the druid and her party say that she will help if we aid her in killing the enemy leader of the desolated land, a being called the Sovereign. We agree and follow her to a cathedral, fighting enemies on the way. The druid cannot make it any further, however, as there is a hex that the Sovereign has woven that prevents her, so we keep going. This is basically where things fall apart. We make it to the cathedral and meet the Sovereign. She has several minions, but is not initially hostile. She is convinced that we will help her instead to kill the druid, and offers us a shop for morphs that Jonathan and Sison are invested in. King Rat also secretly reveals that he is in league with the Sovereign, as she revived him and has his life tied to hers. Okay, this is a bit of a conundrum here. If I was the GM, I would not personally be tying a PC getting revived directly to what I'm going to refer to now as the BBEG, because you will inevitably be forcing PvP onto your party. Because the PC that is alive, again, probably does not want to die. And if the rest of the party wants to kill this BBEG that has their life then tied to that player, that is going to cause some friction. Tied to some other fucked up powerful entity, but not what is basically your BBEG. Especially if PvP has not been approved by the table, because you are asking for PvP to occur. Luca and Jaeger are convinced that the party's alignments are no longer secure, so leave the cathedral to discuss the situation with the druid. They and the druid's party agree to help attack the Sovereign, and by killing her, the druid can help out, choosing to gamble on whose side the other three players take. They return to the cathedral, and the Sovereign asks if they have killed the druid, implyingly holding Jonathan hostage. Jaeger says no, the fight starts, and the session ends there. The GM basically says, next session will be a PvP session, and players are very likely, if not certain, going to die, and whoever won determined if the party would stay good or become evil. This was a surprise to most, but ultimately people felt optimistic, though anxious. Most agreed not to resort to killing other PCs no matter the outcome. Ultimately though, I don't think we had a lot of time to realize how bad this could be due to a player being unavailable next week. It was then decided to start the next session the very next day instead. Okay, this is a potentially really fucking bad situation, especially if PvP was not discussed beforehand and okayed. People are going to be mad because those that are more evil aligned definitely will say they probably want to kill people. I can already see it now. Of course I'm going to kill Jonathan. It's what my character would do. It's a bad idea. You shouldn't do it. Don't spring stuff. If PvP was okayed when you guys were doing session 0, that's fine. But if it was not okayed, you don't just go, well, I guess next session, even though we never agreed on it, you're all going to fucking PvP it out. Good luck, have fun. The fight was pretty much a disaster. King Rat and Sison took the bad side, whilst Luca and Jaeger took the good side. Jonathan stood on the sidelines before deciding to help the good side. Luca suffered a crit fail and was charmed, taking him out of the fight where he was eventually downed. Jaeger made a last attempt and blew himself up with the Sovereign, potentially killing them both in a massive dramatic sacrifice. However, Sison nonchalantly resurrected the Sovereign immediately after. Jonathan went to help Luca, and King Rat attacked him with an AoE, which ended up downing Jonathan and accidentally killing Luca as he wasn't paying attention to the death saves. With that, the session largely ended. Jonathan and Jaeger were downed, Jaeger near death, but both barely saved by Sison and King Rat, and Luca is unfortunately dead. The evil side had won, and we would be shifting to a more evil route. What a way to ruin a dramatic self-sacrifice type moment. That is going to cause friction. There's no way it doesn't. Luca was charmed. People hate losing agency, especially to another player, and they've been killed off. And Jaeger lost what was potentially a super cool moment. I sacrificed myself to kill the BBEG. Those that are more good-leaning, now we're going to have to probably be mad for the rest of the time they're playing because they now have to be evil or sit there and just let evil shit happen in the campaign. Also, it's a bit weird that we're just like paradigm shifting here. If they've been good for most of the campaign, why the sudden shift to evil? It's a little weird. It feels weird. This, of course, did not go well. The good side, including me, were very unhappy with how things came out and felt that if we went this direction, we would be completely unable to play our characters. Jaeger and Luca were both good characters, and turning evil betrays their entire character, purpose, and their own motives and secret plots. Luca is, of course, dead as well, which added to the complication, and my own character, Jonathan, whilst evil himself and a psychopath, part of the fun of him was that he was aligned with good and was forced to behave. Syson's player was pretty adamant that this was a good idea, whilst King Rat's player was easygoing either way. Of course King Rat and Syson are. They both got what they fucking wanted. This would be a moment where Luca, assuming they came back to life, and Jaeger would probably need to leave the party. Which, yeah, you should play a character that will fit into the story and can work with the party, but we have derailed from a morally gray to now straight up evil campaign. It would be great to have a conversation with the entire table, above table, that everyone is okay to continue with this. Perhaps everybody talks and we decide to drop Luca and Jaeger as characters for now and continue with this evil campaign. But then maybe we only continue that for a certain amount of time. We hit like a climactic moment where a good party's gonna fight them. And then meanwhile, we have a separate campaign start up and Luca and Jonathan and Jaeger can join that one, and the other two fuckwits can make their own characters. They play good people, and then you lead up to a big fight with the original party. Original in quotes here, like fucking 3/5 of it's missing. Have the players then have this huge, big PvP epic finale against their own party, which each one getting to play on different sides. You know, that's one way to solve this. I don't think it's necessarily the best, but it's one way. Another way is a discussion needs to be had that this ends because a part of the table doesn't want to play an evil campaign and didn't sign up for one, or they're okay with it, they're willing to drop their good characters, then they turn around and make evil ones so it can move on. Eventually, this caused a lot of argument on where the campaign should go, especially because it was largely decided by a fight that we thought was just another Monster of the Week scenario and not something that would actually fracture the party like this. Eventually, to give more context, the GM revealed that there were long-time plans if evil won, that the Syson player was unsatisfied by how things were and wanted to take an evil route, so the GM planned this out to satisfy it. He also assured us that by taking the evil route would not mean we betrayed our characters. He revealed that there were plans for Syson to usurp the weakened sovereign and create a faction that would likely help us. This calmed the situation down a bit, and now I'm not opposed to it, though Jaeger's player is still unhappy and does not feel Jaeger would agree to this, as well as the fact that the betrayal means Jaeger would hate everyone in the party. Luca's player is unhappy that he died in such an accidental fashion, and if that is answered, he is fine with either way. We are putting a lot of weight on the shoulders of Syson to make the right decisions as what is now effectively the main character of the campaign. The GM is willing to derail this so hard for one person is a big concern for me. This went from a collaborative story to the main character Syson and then everybody else just being side characters. What happens when Syson ends up making bad decisions and they don't help the party like they're supposed to? You just now wasted how many months of everybody else's time building up to this. At best, we get a cool potential redemption arc, and at worst, another PvP moment where the rest of the party now fights BBEG main character Syson to the death. When the dust settles, someone is going to definitely be unhappy here. Again, I have big concerns that PvP wasn't discussed, expectations are continuing to not be clarified, and the GM is focused on giving Syson main story control here, and everybody else can just go fuck themselves. Jaeger and Syson's player have been arguing a lot over it. Syson assures that whilst she wants to go evil, she won't be some wild murder hobo, and there's plenty of nuance to it. It's clear that this frustration also built up over time, and ultimately, I want everyone to be satisfied with whatever comes out. Even if this twist was poorly handled, it was created because Syson's player was unhappy with how things were going. It sounds like Syson's player built a character that was not built right for the campaign. They were likely told morally gray and thought evil was of course the way to go. Now they're mad that the campaign just isn't more evil. Save Syson for an evil campaign, just shelve that character. Also, because one player isn't happy, we derailed the entire story for everybody else. Like, yeah, sure, King Rat's okay with it, but 2 to 3/5 of this table just now needs to go fuck themselves? That's bullshit. So now we're deciding if we are to go through with this, retcon soft or hard the whole thing and start again, or to trust the GM who is still confident he can handle this and keep going despite the complexities it's now caused. A lot to say, but would anyone have any advice on what might be the best way to push on from this and to make everyone happy? I don't know if there is a way to make everybody happy, to be honest. At the very least, a big above-table conversation needs to be had about expectations, plans for the moral compass of this story, and actually fucking stick to it. Ask if PvP is going to be a continuing thing. And then also we need to know that the GM, and by we I mean the players, that the GM is going to be more above board with springing new things on the party, and that party is okay with Sison being the main character. Because this GM is okay with just dropping shit like PvP out on a whim, and is clearly showing favoritism towards one player in particular. Also, if Sison's promises to not go murder hobo go out the window and they do, what the fuck happens then? They throw another fit because the story isn't going the way they want, because the party turned on them, because this GM will clearly do what they want. I personally think this person, by person I mean the GM here, is being a bad GM. And I'd be hesitant to continue this campaign unless there again was a very serious above-table conversation about what was stated prior. I personally wouldn't trust this GM to not drop something huge like PvP that wasn't discussed, not necessarily PvP again, but something else that might be taboo or not agreed upon, and think that it's just perfectly okay. I wouldn't trust this GM to not just do whatever the hell Sison wants because they're bored with how things are going in the campaign. Because apparently Sison's the only one that matters, fuck everybody else. I don't think there's a way to make this amicable for everybody. I think there's one player who made the wrong character for the campaign or got bored with what was going on midway through the campaign, and the GM has let them derail it for everybody else, and now everybody is fucked because Sison gets what they want. To be honest, you might want to drop the table. Our last story today is going to be from user GMmaster2345 and is titled DM Kicked Out My Girlfriend for Things She Did Not Know Were Problems to Others. Girlfriend who moved up here from Texas to be with me was looking to start an IRL D&D campaign during her off time at work and possibly to meet new friends. I also somehow got roped into it, but since she wanted to join, I accepted. Although most of my games were online with DMs who were respecting everyone's wishes, I figured that this would be fine too. She met the DM through the local game store's Discord. The DM invited us two plus 4 others into a personal server just for the campaign. The first few sessions were here. Everything started off fine, everyone seemed to have gotten along well, and we decided to move to the personal home of one of the players. I do not remember much of the campaign since I was mostly there just to be around people. One session ended with my girlfriend's character almost being killed, dice rolled and things happened, whatever. However, the session following that, the DM wanted her to roll a new character for some reason. In-game, it seemed like her previous character wanted to keep to her own and make sure our choices would not have more negative impact, but looking at it now, it feels like a flag I might have missed. Okay, the DM asking a player to make a new character is something there needs to be a reason for. It could be as simple as, hey, your character died, make a new one, to something more complex, like your character may not have a reason to be in the party, or you built something that wasn't allowed, or is just not melding with the campaign. But the DM should be able to give a reason to the girlfriend in this situation, and there should be a reason. There needs to be a reason listed. That way, if there is a problem, say the girlfriend built a character that doesn't have a reason to be in the party, they know that they need to make sure that their character has a reason to adventure or be in the party. You know, that way the mistake doesn't repeat. She spent another $50 or so, I assume, on a mini, plus 100 on PDFs from D&D Beyond. Terrible use of a campaign, but I digress. P sounds very invested in the campaign. I should have been paying attention more by this point. The DM started to shortchange my girlfriend in every conversation with every NPC, so girlfriend tried to be included by talking more and was mostly ignored. She talked to the DM about it through Discord, and we both thought that would be the end of it. Happened several times over the next few months, though. Then he introduced us to a new system involving upgrading weapons using stones and other types of items. Immediately this got shot down since one player didn't want it and then threatened to leave. Things seemed to have started to kind of even out, and I thought the worst of it was over. Then a couple months back, one of the players decided to do a group hangout for a weekend out in the wilderness of nowhere current state. Okay, cool, sounds like great bonding time. I'm curious how that conversation between the girlfriend and the DM went. Did the DM say they would work to include the girlfriend more? If not explicitly stated, both might have walked away from that conversation thinking completely different things. If DM did say they would, The girlfriend should be following up after a couple sessions of being cut off, saying that the issue is still continuing. So far, though, it sounds like this DM isn't explaining themselves very well, or they potentially don't like the girlfriend. It's also very weird that someone in the party flipped out on a weapons upgrade system to the point of threatening to leave. That's really weird to me. Are they like a huge rules lawyer or something where we have to do everything within the confines of, say, the 5e system? Do they just hate homebrew? Do they fear stones and that's why? I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Between then and this past weekend, everything seemed to be on the up and up. No issues with anyone, personal or otherwise, that we both knew of at the time. So the weekend comes and we are playing for most of the day on Saturday and Sunday. We reached the town of where a person we were tasked to kill lived, killing off his guard, storming his house and into a basement with a lever puzzle of sort. After one of the players solved the puzzle and ended up finding the person we were tasked to kill, we ended up capturing him instead to make him pay for his crimes. And we also found a supposedly dead father there as well in the same room. To preface, this man we were meant to kill made deals with a hag and sold off the children of the city while taxing everyone to the brink. This alone would have been enough to make anyone want to kill him IRL or otherwise. Father has second thoughts about killing his son. Did the father plan the campaign, like the quest? And left the vote to the party. 1 death by hanging, 2 death by decapitation, 3 forced to live in shackles for the rest of his life. Although I voted to let him live, played a loot goblin who wanted to know that every one of his possessions were lost forever, but didn't care if he died either way or how. I'm a bit confused on OP's character. Are they trying to find things that they lost? Or loot things and then lose those things forever somewhere? I was a little confused there. Vote led to him being spared, but put in the same cage he put his father in the end. At this point, the initial person who wanted to leave seemed to have a lot of sway now. Half the group ended up in a boss fight when taking him down to his new home. The party ended up winning. Someone tried to save the paladin in our party who fell, the party member who wanted said person to live left, and the girlfriend stayed behind. Girlfriend's character wanted this person to die for even making deals with the hags in the first place, and killed him with a poison-laced arrow and left without issue. DM allowed every roll from that point forward to be casted, so we thought this was fine. Monday morning rolls around. We drive back home, both of us take a nap, and then we end up meeting my family for dinner. We both get a message shortly after dinner that the DM has kicked my girlfriend out of the party. 1 for speaking over everybody, and 2 for killing a person that forced agency to be taken from another party member not mentioned by name, but definitely part of the issue at hand. Gave her the boot, but gave me a choice. Worst part was, I have a knack for saying dumb and out of character things at wrong times. I expected to get the boot first, so it makes no sense to me. Needless to say, I am not happy about this treatment, and I am more mad at myself for not shutting it down sooner. I left the group that night and blocked them all yesterday. I'm still angry about this and need to vent somewhere. Okay, a couple things we need to break down here. We do have an issue here if the majority of the party wanted to spare them, but another player went and killed them. That being said, the DM really should have stepped in here. If things that could cause a breakdown of the table, which this potentially could be something that does, like killing somebody that everybody else wanted alive, it doesn't hurt to have an above table conversation as things are happening. Take a moment, just pause, talk it out. Let everyone's thoughts be known above table so people have a chance to explain themselves, why their character's doing this thing. That way, if the NPC does end up dead, people aren't pissed because we've talked it out, or they're not as pissed because the girlfriend stepped out of line or something, because everybody's had a chance to talk it over. If girlfriend was talking over people, again, the DM should be stepping in to temper it. They might be doing that because they aren't getting enough spotlight time or RP time, and it is the only way they can. That being said, though, you really should not talk over others. It is rude, even if you yourself are getting fucked over and not getting as much spotlight time. OP and their girlfriend are better off, to be honest, without this table. 1, they kind of just don't seem to jive with it. The girlfriend clearly wants more spotlight time, and the DM isn't down for that. This campaign is clearly being steered by one player, who may or may not have been the one complaining that their agency was taken away. And to be honest, one person steering the entire campaign when everybody kind of wants to have say in it is not going to make for a fun time. And 3, there are clear communication issues at this table, either because the DM isn't communicating or following through on agreements, and or everybody but the one person who is flipping shut on everything doesn't matter when it comes to choices on how this game's going to be run according to the DM. One player should not be steering the entire table with threats of leaving. If something is worth leaving over, then fuck off, leave, I guess. Threatening to leave over something like a weapon upgrade system is a bit of a red flag to me, to be honest. It's one to say, like, I don't really enjoy this, But it's now to be like, how dare you? If you implement this, DM, who's running the game and who makes the world and decisions and decides on the rules, fuck you, I'm gonna leave. Like, it's a lot. OP and their girlfriend are better off not being at this table. Hopefully they can find a better one where they're able to communicate better, have a GM that doesn't cut them off, allows the girlfriend to have spotlight time, etc. Alrighty guys, that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys all for hanging out. If you were enjoying the video, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't yet so I show up in your inbox. Otherwise, leave a comment on either of the stories we talked about down in those comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts on either story. If you're interested, I do stream throughout the week on Twitch. Link is in the description for that. Otherwise, I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye, everybody.